Hello and welcome to Sioux Online. Today we have Paul Christian, one of the current councillors for Ward 1, Ground Zero. Hello, Paul.
Hi. Hi, Mike.
Would you like to tell people something about yourself?
Sure, I'd love to. And first of all, thank you for having me today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a lifelong resident of Sault Ste. Marie. I've lived here my entire life. Attended university here in Sault Ste. Marie. Currently, I'm a teacher with the Algoma District School Board. I teach primarily English and business, civics and careers. I'm married with two lovely girls that are attending university here in Sault Ste. Marie, and my wife Julie. I've been involved in the community all my adult life, as well as being the incumbent Ward 1 counselor. I'm currently sitting on the board of Sault College Board of Directors. I'm the chair of their Building and Finance Committee. I'm working as a foundation member with the Children's Rehabilitation Center Algoma as the treasurer. And I'm part of the finance committee at the city. So I've been active my entire life in the community, and I hope to continue that way.
Okay. You don't sit on the board of the PUC, though?
I do not sit on the board of the PUC.
Which three councillors do?
Currently, it's Councillor Mick, Councillor Bruni, and Councillor Fata.
Okay. Could you describe your first term?
Fabulous.
For us?
Fabulous. Absolutely loved it. I often get asked, what do you think about, being a counselor? You must have put up with a lot of you-know-what. And I say, I don't characterize it as you-know-what. What I characterize it as, and a lot of different people, a lot of different challenges. I've absolutely loved it. I come from a customer service background, and most of what counselors do is done behind the scenes. It's not the Monday night meetings. You're dealing with a lot of fine people, for me, Ward 1, and I love being able to receive a phone call from a constituent or an email and they have an issue, whether it's a suggestion or a problem, and dealing with it. That's fun because you get automatic feedback and you're contributing something, you're making a difference. So I've absolutely loved the challenges, loved the opportunities to help people, and I really want to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you inherited the Sioux's worst problem when you became a councillor, the water quality, and it's getting worse. Could you tell me why? Why hasn't it been getting worse?
Well, just with all due respect, didn't quite inherit it. It sort of grew during our tenure, but I understand your question. The PUC, and what I'm telling you is what I've been told by the PUC and my closeness with the issue. The PUC was required to make some changes because of regulatory changes. I think that's non-debatable. The issue is the choice they made. At the time when they came to council, in order to meet the regulatory changes, they had a couple of options after reading the consultant's report. They had a choice of going with UV primary disinfectant and chloramine, which was the disinfectant that was used before these changes, or go to free chlorine. My feeling is they took free chlorine because they could have saved themselves and water users a lot of money. It was the wrong decision to make. They went with free chlorine. The problem, as I understand it, in the system is that free chlorine does not deal with the imbalances of pH, especially in the East End, because free chlorine mixed with the chemicals and the chemical composition of the Lorna well that we draw most of our water from created sludge in the system. Did they know that? I don't know, but that's what we've inherited.
Well, can't they just change now or
yes.
back when they first realized
that
it was causing a problem? Why didn't they?
Yeah, very fair question. I, from the get-go, started complaining about the issue of the water quality, the water taste, as the whole city did. What we didn't know at the time was, for the first year or so, this sludge was building up in the system. When we started getting brown water events, I sat on, we created a committee to deal with this. I sat across the table from the PUC, board members, from the president, scientists from the MOE, and we came up with a plan, which has been put in place. The plan as it is now, I can tell you that phase 1 is just about done. We've closed the Lorna well. We should have dealt with the creation of more sludge, which leads to brown water. To answer your question, though, what the PUC wants to do is they want to see, by adding soda ash and some other chemicals, if they can stabilize the pH level in the system, which should help address the taste, they say, right? Between you, me, and the listening audience, I think, yes, I think what's going to happen, because I've kind of predicted this from the beginning, we're going to end up getting to chloramine and UV. They're taking their time, they're staging it to see if they can avoid paying that $5 or $6 million.
Okay, but this change has just taken place, apparently starting in April of this year.
They shut the Lorna well.
Okay. Why didn't they do that in 13 or 12?
You know, I think it's an excellent question. I believe, and I'll say this, I think that the PUC are very insular. In other words, they keep a lot of the stuff to themselves. I'm not sure why, with all the pressure that I put on them, that they didn't move quickly on this. They should have.
Okay, so you're saying that the PUC doesn't keep our council updated on what they are doing?
Not as well as they should.
Well, why isn't our council forcing them to? Like, instead of annual reports, bi-monthly. Even semi-annually would be better than what they're doing now. Why didn't council force them to do that?
Very, very fair question. I think there's two answers to that question. One is that because they're incorporated under the Ontario Corporations Act, their requirement is to report, the staff are supposed to report to the board. Up until about 2 months ago, when I pushed the president to acknowledge that this is no longer a day-to-day operational issue, that it's a board issue, their board has been very reluctant to come to us, okay? But you'll notice that the mayoral candidate came forward and took the board to task, and that was the first time we heard from the PUC board. So I think through my pressure and this, we're starting to see the board come forward. Now, the second part of the question, if I might answer it, I think going forward what we need to do, the PUC has created a culture in there. Their board has created a culture where they've seen themselves separate from council, that they're a separate entity, and they are legally, but to your point, they do owe us and the community answers. What I'd like to see happen, and I've met with the city's legal counsel, we need to look at a different relationship, open up the contract with the PUC. My feeling is that what we should do is we should look at all of our options. One of them is to hire a third party to manage our water. Another option is to sell all of the assets of the PUC. That's an $80 million sale. I'm not recommending it. I'm simply saying that that's something that could be on the table. The third option, which I think makes sense, is that we need to change the process for selecting the board of directors at the PUC. Those applications need to come through the city. There needs to be an interview process, much like I had to go through to get on the Sioux College board. All right? And then I believe that the new board should be charged with setting metrics, parameters, performance measures for the president to start dealing with the internal stuff that's going on there. And to your point, the board needs to be in front of council monthly or quarterly to speak about specific things that are a concern to the city.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of those would be good. Option B.
No, and I'm not suggesting.
would be terrible, because then we would have no say whatsoever. Right. And what would we do with them holding all the cards.
Absolutely. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that that's what I want to do. I'm simply saying that when we're making decisions regarding something as important as the PUC, my approach has always been to look at all of the options. Okay? I don't know that that would be a good option at all. I believe my third option is the best option.
One thing that really bothers me is that out of all the cities we're required to deal with legislation that Ontario government put out, not one other city has had the problems that we have had, apparently. Okay, why? Are they all going the different route that you mentioned earlier, or I don't think so.
You know what, I couldn't give you a fair answer on that because I don't know which cities are or aren't. When it was presented to council, we were told that there are a handful of cities that still use chloramine. The vast majority of cities use free chlorine. Based on, you know, I mean, we have to rely on our so-called experts and the people they hire as experts to take that, you know, we have to accept that at least for the time being. And we were told that there are very few communities that use chloramine as a primary disinfectant. Was it the right decision? As I said earlier, it clearly wasn't the right decision. And I think eventually, being a positive person, we'll get to the right spot.
Okay. Well, it's also been suggested that we get rid of this regime at the PUC and hire a different one. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, we could be negative and just throw up our hands and say we'll never solve the problem, or we could try to deal with the issue at hand. Clearly,
but dealing with the issue for how many years? People in the East End, yourself, maybe too, have been going through this problem for at least 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Like somebody would have told me is, if this happened in the private sector, heads would roll. Heads would roll. Why not now? Can't the city do anything about this regime and change it?
Well, I appreciate the question. The regime makes it sound like it's a third world kind of military, but I get you.
Well, we're dealing with third world
service,
water kind of quality.
Yeah, and I think that my suggestion that we look at a new board, that it starts from the top, right? With a new board, with a new focus, with a new view to customer service and end product. I think we're heading in that direction. To simply you know, you could try to fire the president, which would have to be done through their board. We can't do it because they have a board. There are corporate rules.
And they outnumber us.
No, it's not a question of outnumbering at all. It's not a question of, first of all, if you put more counselors, and I know where you're going with this question, if you put more counselors on the board, then you start invoking the Municipal Act, which requires different rules regarding quorum and open meetings with counselors. To me, putting more people on who aren't specialists in certain areas is not the answer at all. It's very, very dangerous. I sit on several boards. What you need at the PUC board is you need experts in human resources, you need experts in marketing, you need experts in accounting, you need experts, technical experts in water. So those people that, by the way, have stepped forward late in the campaign to jump on this issue aren't fully thinking this through. We need people on that board who are experts. Putting more counselors on is not necessarily the answer. You got to watch what you wish for there. That's why I think if we retool the board and charge them as the owners with specific goals to improve things, I think that's the answer.
Moving on.
Yes.
If you lose your seat
Yep.
in this election, do you think it would be fair for you to suffer the consequences of somebody else's actions or inactions?
Yeah. Well, no, obviously not. I'd like to think, first of all, I've had 3 brown water issues myself, so I'm living the PUC issue, right? If I lost the election, solely because of the PUC issue, then I would be very concerned about the city in general, because there are a lot of great opportunities and challenges that lay ahead. I like to think that we need to move forward. There's a lot of good things happening in the city, and if people make their decisions solely on the water.
Yeah, but this is a community that's open for business, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We advertise that way.
Yeah.
Who's going to want to come here if there's a reputation of poor quality water, bad roads, no deep sea harbor for a few years. We've had that problem for a long time now. But if who's going to want to come here if we have that type of reputation?
Well, I don't think we have that type of
We
reputation.
do. That we have poor quality water, and it's
Our water's changed. What part of the problem is
it's not
that?
fixed yet.
Well, it's not.
No.
But we have a plan in place, and if people read the literature, we're making changes. The changes are in place.
By the time they decide,
It's decided.
yeah, they're going to move somewhere else.
Who is?
And whoever was considering moving
How
here,
do you know that?
because they're going to want to start up their business as quickly as possible and start bringing in money. If our city is having issues with water, roads, stuff like that,
Do you think, my argument to you is, a lot of business goes on in Toronto. Toronto's water is not any worse than ours is.
I would have agreed with you years ago.
Okay, and
But-
business people don't make decisions. I get your point. I understand what you're saying.
Small businesses.
In the end, if there's a business reason for being here, we will see to it that the climate here is good for business. And it is good for business. And we're starting to see changes. We as citizens are frustrated with the water. I get it. I get that. But maybe one of the things that the small business people would be worried about is that we don't spend enough time trying to accommodate them, and we're spending too much time pointing fingers at each other about brown water.
Well, okay, this might be a touchy issue. Why did you and Butland decide to put out a public letter to PUC at this time? A lot of people, and I say a lot of people, are going to see it as a ploy to get reelected.
Not true at all. The reason why we did it was because if you've been following the news, there were 11 brown water issues prior to the flushing this year. And we made it very clear in our letter that people in Ward 1 were tired of brown water. And it was that simple.
People in Ward 1 have been tired of brown water for 3 years now. Why now? Why put that letter up now?
Because they were going to flush, and as we said in the letter, if you flush now, it's like picking at a scab. People are tired, they don't want more brown water.